best of the ComGuard against the best of the clans, a proxy battle for Terra. ComStar's throne world, the ultimate prize. ComStar had been founded more than 2.5 centuries earlier by Jerome Blake, the sainted visionary who'd foreseen the war-racked pit the Inner Sphere would become, and had built ComStar to be the light in these dark times. His faith now flowed through the veins of every acolyte, adept, and presenter on planet, ready to stand against the darkness of the clans. Minka felt that in her bones. In the acrid smoke and smell of burning Myomer, the history of the Inner Sphere was forever changed on Tukayyid. At no point in human history had so much been on the line and so many impacted by the result of a conflict on what would have otherwise been an insignificant planet far from the machinery of any power. The Battle of Tukayyid in 3052 was a gamble for the future of the Inner Sphere. However, it was one that ComStar under presenter Marshal Falk had every intention of undertaking with as much advantage as possible. Using what Falk had learned from clan culture and their incessant need to compete with each other for glory and honor, the odds were increasingly in ComStar's favor even before the first clan Mechs stepped out onto the planet's surface. The challenge placed before the clans was tantalizingly simple, with the clan invasion gobbling up territory in the Combine, Lyran Commonwealth, and what was left of the Rosselhog Republic. Tukayyid would prevent unnecessary deaths and destruction by taking on a status of proxy for an eventual battle on Terra. If the clans could defeat ComStar on Tukayyid, Terra would be theirs to squabble over. However, if the clans were to lose, a 15-year truce would force the clan juggernaut into a fenced region while the rest of the Inner Sphere could prepare for future conflict. Initially, 25 galaxies of clan forces across 7 clans would land on Tukayyid to face down the ComGuard's 12 armies over agreed-upon targets and objectives. Sure enough, the competition between the clans was fierce, especially for the opportunity to be the first into battle and for the juiciest of objectives. There was a conspiracy among the Crusader clans to box Clan Wolf out with extremely reckless bidding to push the Wardens to the worst objectives and the latest drops. Clan Wolf, of course, was fine with this because they knew that the ComGuard were stronger than simple mainline house forces. They stood back and watched as the Smoke Jaguars, Nova Cats, and Jade Falcons cut their bids to the point at which victory was extremely unlikely. Sure enough, in a tale that would take much more time than this short-form video would allow, the clans were stomped by the entrenched ComGuard that used every trick in the book and even crafted a few new ones to maximize the power of their forces while limiting the power of the clan attackers. Some, like the Smoke Jaguars, were able to spot an obvious canyon ambush, and yet in typical clanner fashion just couldn't resist running right into it. Meanwhile, the Wolves sat back with their typical smug superiority and let it all play out. It makes one wonder why they were brought along on the invasion in the first place, when it was so obvious they were only there to drag their feet and leave knives in the back of their fellow clanners. Internal clan politics has always been a nonsense sandwich, so we'd best move on. The purpose of this video is to run a little thought experiment. Imagine you were in a position to piece together your ideal ComGuard Level II. What battle mechs would you pick? I have my own list, and I think I can make a pretty convincing argument for each of mine. While I wouldn't hold anyone else to it, I've done my best to stick to the rules of the ComGuard Level IIs set up in the Tukayyid 3rd edition sourcebook. This includes, unfortunately, not being able to mix light mechs with assaults. And since there is one assault mech I absolutely had to have, my level 2 is just going to be on the heavier end of that spectrum. A ComGuard level 2 consists of 6 units, in our case battle mechs, and fit into general categories like fire, striker, assault, and battle. For example, a heavy level 2 could include a medium, heavy, or assault mech, while a light level 2 could be entirely light mechs or a mixture of light and mediums with the occasional heavy mech tossed into the fray. With those limitations in mind, here's the level 2 that I would bring to the battle on Tukayyid. First produced in 2572, the 80-ton Thug was designed by the Maltex Corporation to be a direct competitor to the popular Warhammer battlemech. The similar loadouts suggested a tough distinction, but the Thug benefited from a variety of new internal features which set it apart. The use of Earthworks VOL Endosteel bought tonnage, and the installation of case to protect the SRM-6 ammunition made the mech more durable in battle. However, the biggest advantage was the installation of 18 double heat sinks. With 36 heat dissipation, the Thug could run an Alpha Strike without any concern for overheating. The twin SRM-6s could be quite fun if the mech is able to close in on its clanner opponents. If not, the two PVCs still pack quite the wallop. It scores highly on my completely arbitrary and subjective utility scale for being useful at all ranges. It has the strength due to 15.5 tons of armor plating and is fun to use without the frustration of having to watch your heatsinks. Overall, the Thug 11E is an all-around solid performer. It will also coordinate well with the other mechs in our level 2. The Thug absolutely earns its place on the team. Our next battle mech is the GLT-3N Guillotine. The first of these beautiful 70-ton monsters stomped off the assembly lines of Newhart Industries back in 2499. With a decent amount of armor, good mobility, and a bevy of medium and short-range weapons, the Guillotine can devastate targets that wander too close. Constructed around a Crucis 1 endosteel frame and a Vox 280 fusion engine, the Guillotine benefits from technology that isn't available for later 3025 era battlemechs and considered brand new again by 3052. The Anderson 398 jump jets push the Guillotine 3N's movement profile to 464, which definitely helps the mech close in on its prey. The astonishing 25 standard heatsinks help keep the mech relatively cool as it fires its large laser, 4 medium lasers, and SRM-6. Ideally, doing enough damage in a single turn to seriously damage if not kill its target. The 12 tons of armor is acceptable in conjunction with the standard engine and case for the SRM ammunition in the right torso. As long as there are no lucky head hits, the Guillotine is a tough target to take down for good. Having that SRM-6 in the center torso and lasers spread across the various hardpoints is a great strategy. The Guillotine 3N does well on the utility scale for being effective in the mid and short ranges and being a survivor with a powerful punch. Strength is bolstered with a solid weapons loadout. As far as fun goes, an aggressive Mechwarrior who uses this mech's agility to avoid incoming fire before making their kill at close range is gonna have a ball. Next up on our list is the 75-ton BL-6B Black Knight. This variant of the popular Knight in Armor style battlemech was created in 2751 and benefits from some really solid tech upgrades, not typically seen until much later in the timeline. The Technicron 1L endosteel and Vlar 300 fusion engine are the core of a very durable design. 13 tons of standard armor provide decent protection, and 16 double heatsinks are going to be well used by the energy-heavy loadout. The 6B's right arm mounted ERPPC is the headline seeker, but the gems of this build are the pair of large pulse lasers nestled into the mech's left and right torsos. Their accurate fire in conjunction with the ERPPC is a potent 28 damage, and when the heat generated gets too hot, the Mechwarrior can skip the ERPPC for a turn and use the 4 standard medium lasers spread across the mech's torso and arms to keep the DPS from dropping. The emotional support small laser is nice, and the Beagle active probe could be quite useful should the level 2 stumble across a scouting star of clan mechs trying to run Operation Sneaky Sneak. The Black Knight 6B is very strong, decently armored, and if it has a downside, it's that it will require some savvy heat management to maximize the mech's damage output. It is an obvious choice for my ComGuard Level II. I couldn't possibly build a ComGuard Level II without including the CRB27 Crab. By default, it's going to be our scout mech, as I couldn't add any light mechs to my level 2. The 50-ton CRB27 Crab first scuttled off the assembly lines in 2719, and though the term totem mech really wouldn't be coined until much later in history, this definitely fits the definition. Built around a Hollis Mark 1A steel frame and a Magma 250 fusion engine, the Crab can hit a top speed of 86 km per hour. That puts the Crab on par with a majority of the clan heavy mechs, and even some of their mediums. The 9 tons of ferrofibrous armor is good for a 50-ton mech and just a half-ton shy of the max possible. Armed with a pair of large lasers split between the arms, the Crab has a solid pinch. A medium and small laser back up the large lasers, all adding up to a build that doesn't have to rely upon ammunition and can be nasty toward light and other mediums. As part of this level 2, the Crab is likely not going to be a primary target, and thus will likely survive longer than it might if included in a level 2 with lighter battlemechs. As far as overall strength goes, it can take some hits but doesn't have the greatest damage output. Overall utility is solid thanks to its speed and armor. Fun, of course, is off the scale because it's the Crab. Sorry, not sorry. Our next pick for the level 2 reflects a need for some fire support. From the available options, I had to go with the tried and true Archer. However, we're going to go with the 5CS variant, as it was developed by ComStar specifically for the fight on Tukayyid, and that fits our mission well. Constructed using Earthworks Endosteel and a Vox 280 XL fusion engine, the 5CS is definitely not your run-of-the-mill Succession Wars Archer. 11.5 tons of standard armor provide okay protection, though most of the time, ideally, you're going to want to keep the Archer out of the fray. The XL engine is a little iffy, but since it's a pure fire support mech, I can forgive it. Armed with 4 LRM-15 launchers aided by Artemis IV fire control systems, the 5CS can send an intimidating number of missiles downrange. Thankfully, the 11 double heat sinks can handle that fire consistently, even while the mech is on the run. If things get desperate, the mech also has 2 medium lasers, 1 in each arm, which aren't likely to do much, but at least it's something should an enemy get within the LRM's minimum range. As it turned out, the small number of Archer 5CS units that did make it to Tukayyid in time for the battle performed very well. With spotters calling in coordinates, the Archer rained down LRMs on clan positions with such ferocity that it forced the clans to pivot. Units of Clan Wolf and Clan Jade Falcon elementals were rapidly delivered on kill missions to hunt down these Archers. Unfortunately for the Archers, some of that ammunition for the LRM launchers was stored in the legs. When the elementals discovered this, their focused efforts to swarm those legs resulted in rapid ammo dumping in the form of large explosions. All things considered, the Archer 5CS is a solid fire support battle mech. It's rocking those LRMs, which can do some significant damage, suffers a little bit outside of that role, but is still quite enjoyable. My last entry into my ideal Tukayyid Level II is the KGC-000 King Crab. It's 100 tons of stompy, clickety-clack terror and an imposing presence on any battlefield. As an example of opportunity cost in action, the King Crab sacrificed speed and agility in favor of raw power and thick armor plating. Designed in 2741 and first produced in 2743, the King Crab was intended to be one of the most powerful battle mechs in existence. Gosara weaponries channeled a significant amount of resources into production lines on both Mars and Northwind, and while it never existed in great enough numbers to rival the Atlas as a battlefield command mech, anyone who encountered one on the battlefield would not soon forget it. Weighing in at 100 tons and forged from a Hollis Mark II chassis, the King Crab was a boulder of a machine. The Vlar 300 fusion engine was pushed to its limits just to move the mech to a top speed of 54 km per hour. Of course, where the King Crab truly shines is with its armor and weaponry. 16 tons of Aldous 10 ferrofibrous armor provided 287 points of armor protection, which is quite stellar. With 40 points of protection in the center torso and 35 in the legs, only a considerable effort can take down this scuttling monster. Armed with both long and short-range weaponry, the King Crab 000 could rain down fire consistently. Though the mech truly shined as it brought its twin AC-20 autocannons into play, with shots that could disable a light mech or even a medium mech in a single blow. Adding in the damage from the large laser, and the King Crab can be an absolute terror. One of the downsides, unfortunately, is that the King Crab 000 could only be used in limited engagements, as there were only 5 shots each for the autocannons and just 8 shots with the LRM-15. When used strategically, however, the mech was a game changer. The King Crab maxes out on our power scale, suffers in utility due to its limitation, but does very well in the entirely subjective fun category because carcinification is inevitable. In the future, all will become crab. While most BattleTech fans know that the ComGuard would win out over the clan Invaders on Tukayyid, those victories came at a tremendous cost. Many of the ComGuard units were severely degraded, if not outright destroyed, as clanners threw themselves into last-ditch attempts to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. "It was hell, sir," she said, not moving. Her mind saw several of the nearby percentors stiffen, but she didn't care. Minka Walczak had seen too many men and women die under her command to care. "Blake looked away from us, sir." "We won, Adept," the bandaged precentor growled. "Through his grace." Minka didn't look away from the precentor marshal. "There was nothing graceful about this precentor," she said with a certainty of a veteran. "They promised us victory if our faith held." She stopped, lip trembling. "Well, we got our victory," she ground out, "but that promise was bullshit." Now that you have my level 2, I'm curious to know what you would pick for yours. If you use the mech assignment tables from the Tukayyid sourcebook, that's great, but if you want to go wild and use other Innersphere mechs, that's fine too. Drop your ideal level 2 into the comments and we'll see how they fare. Thanks as always for coming by to talk some BattleTech. If you like this little thought experiment, let me know by hitting that like button or even subscribe so you can see more of this nonsense in the future. If the video is received well, we might have to make this a regular thing on the channel. An additional thanks to channel members who have taken that extra step and are directly supporting the creation of these videos. There's no combination of words that will properly describe just how much I appreciate it. So until we meet again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.